Hello and welcome back to the Chattercade podcast, where we discuss media in the forms of reviews and topical-based discussions. I'm your host, Drinking Tom Shoes, and today I'm joined by my good friend, Bad Quality Bear, aka Alex. I was very close saying Geeky Bear then.
Hello, I'm back.
You're back for the first time with your new name, I'm pretty certain.
Possibly, I don't know. I've slept since last time, multiple times.
So anyway, obviously we thought of like a couple of ideas before for a podcast that you come on for. Obviously, these ideas were technically there for the possible so many subscribers, followers for your Twitch, I think it was originally.
Yes.
But obviously you had to dance instead, wasn't it? Was it karaoke?
Yeah. I had to dance.
Yeah, I thought it was, but obviously you came to me with the idea of, well, what if we could do a podcast as an option?
Yeah.
I said, sure, I'm always up for a live podcast. I haven't done one in a while. I've done one, and it was with Connor for a Saw review.
I've done one live podcast,
and that was.
Yeah.
I think the joke I said was, at least this time I'd actually have someone watching it live, because yay. But yeah, so obviously we came up with these two ideas. Obviously you had an idea, I had an idea.
Yeah.
And obviously since we didn't use it for that, I stored them. And I was like, fuck it, let's get one going today. Because I was meant to do one with Connor for this week. Fell through at the last minute.
Nothing new.
Yeah. Scheduling just did not match up whatsoever between us.
Fuck you, Connor.
So here we are. But yeah, so we did the random spin to see which idea it was, because neither of us knew which idea we actually wanted to do.
Okay, we couldn't be asked.
Yeah, it was the case of not being bothered. Right, we was like, yeah, we could talk both.
Either or.
Either one doesn't bother us, and in this situation when both people are like that, you kind of like, shit. You need one person to at least go, oh well, I prefer this idea. Let's go with that one.
We're just both passive.
Yeah. And as in the end, obviously, we went with this, and that is talking, obviously, the life and death of the Arrowverse, the CW universe. Obviously, that is basically a DC franchise, which began in 2012 and ended in 2023.
Isn't it still going, technically?
No, doesn't count. I will explain in a second. Does not count.
Okay.
So if you don't know what the Arrowverse is, where have you been since 2012? What rock you been living under? So the Arrowverse is a superhero universe, which is forefronted by Arrow, which is what it's called.
Yeah.
The Arrowverse.
Mm-hmm.
It was because obviously CW and DC had worked together before with the Smallville show. Obviously, before, technically, I think at that point, it was actually Warner TV. But obviously, the back end kind of... It was essentially... Basically, it was CW before CW was CW. So, obviously, they wanted to go back into TV, bring the life to the superhero genre on the small screen. Because, realistically, not many TV shows at that point, superhero-wise, obviously were a thing. It's more movies. It wasn't really till Marvel and DC went back to it that there was any. Obviously Marvel with the Netflix shows and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Obviously, and DC with the Arrowverse. So obviously that started in 2012 with Arrow, which then spun off in 2014 with The Flash, which not technically, but obviously a completely different company then made Supergirl. But then CW crossed over. I think it was CBS that did Supergirl.
I think so.
And obviously, The Flash crossed over into an episode of Supergirl, which was kind of a backdoor way of being like, okay, we're going to start connecting these. And then so many seasons down the line, that officially became proper Arrowverse. To the point of like the last season, or maybe last two seasons, was actually set within the proper universe. It was the last.
I think it was the last one.
Last one, and maybe the fifth one. Because obviously it depends when the crossover event was. But obviously in 2016, obviously Flash itself spun off with Legends, which obviously they used both Arrow and Flash in a crossover to allow this, because that's how they did a lot of the creations of the new shows. It was through crossovers. So obviously Flash crossed over from Arrow by, obviously, technically speaking, he appeared in an Arrow episode, and then as I said, that spun into his own show. The Legends stuff was a 2-part event. The second 2-part, obviously, crossover that Flash and Arrow did, because the first one was just a normal, obviously, episode between the two of them. But then they did the Legends one. That obviously then came out in 2016, and all these shows lasted for fucking ages. Some of them outstayed their welcome a bit too long. Cough, cough, the Flash towards the end. I think the only show that didn't spin off from one of these shows was Black Lightning. That
wasn't Stargirl.
That's not Arrowverse. That's like...
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Those sort of ones are obviously, they have certain links. I know, because isn't in Stargirl at one point the one who plays Jay Garrick in The Flash? Isn't he in it at one point?
Yeah.
So there is some little links. Obviously, the Crisis event had obviously all cameos and shit like that, but they're not.
It had like Titans as well.
Yeah, but they're not official. Obviously, Arrowverse. They're just one of the many multiverses of DC. But obviously, Black Lightning is the only one that, technically speaking, didn't actually spin off from anything. It was just its own show. That was probably, I think, is the second shortest of the Arrowverse shows, because the next one, which actually span off from Arrow, Flash, and Legends, which obviously was Batwoman.
Oh yeah,
that was obviously the shortest.
I was like, what was the other shortest one? Yeah.
So obviously Batwoman spun off from them, but then on top of that, you obviously also had other things. So Constantine, technically not Arrowverse properly, but was linked to an extent.
SPW one.
Because Constantine was NBC, I believe, for the first season before it got cancelled.
Yeah.
And they were planning on having Stephen Amell's Oliver appear in that show, which would have been pretty cool. Which would have then made sense why there's like, obviously, he then appears in Arrow, because then they had to kind of did their own explanation on why they know each other, because obviously the many flashbacks Arrow had, because these... One thing CW's Arrowverse loved was a lot of goddamn flashbacks. Yeah,
especially in Arrow.
Arrow, I think Flash to an extent used them quite a lot as well.
I think it depends though, because like it depends on what season.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning, kinda.
Because there's a lot to do with Wells and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think Flash tends to use it more for character development.
Yeah.
Whereas Arrow was just like, that was the whole point of that show. There was literally 2 timelines going constantly. Heck, at one point there was 3 fucking timelines because of the future timeline going on. But yeah, so obviously Constantine was NBC, and then you also had the Flash 90s show, which obviously they connected via the Crisis event, which was obviously where they used the actor who played Jay, obviously Barry's dad / the actual Jay Garrick. Obviously they had him play the actual Barry Allen from the 90s show. Along with Mark Hamill, he appeared as the Trickster, which he was in both the current Flash, obviously the modern Flash, and the old Flash, which is pretty cool. What's going past my house? Ambulance. But yeah, obviously they also spun off with animated stuff. So you had Vixen, Freedom Fighter Ray. Obviously, Freedom Fighter Ray was a spin-off to the Legends. Well, no, sorry, the crossover event that basically they used to kill off a Legends character, which was the Crisis on Earth X, I think it was.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ray made a cameo, obviously appearance in that, and then they had him have his own little mini animated series they kept doing, and then Vixen, I think it was before she was in Arrow.
Yeah, it's before she was in Arrow, but then there was also another Vixen
in Legends, obviously the ancestor of the Vixen that we knew from the Arrow show. Because you had the modern day Vixen, which is the one that got the animated show, and you had the past Vixen, which was part of Legends. Yeah. But obviously both Grant Gustin and Stephen Amell both appeared in the Vixen show, obviously as Arrow and Flash respectively, which is pretty cool. And obviously these animated ones were only tiny. They were barely anything really. But there were nice little like ways to show off characters that probably wouldn't get their own TV show or their own anything really. So it's nice to give them something and then obviously use them actually in the proper show, which is pretty cool. And then on top of that, obviously there was something else as well. Where is it? Let me scroll down a second. So the web series, yes. Technically, obviously, I think the Constantine one that was on the CW seed was technically part of the animated universe because we did the film on it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because it was technically a mini-series that then turned into the big film, and I'm pretty certain that connects more to the actual main movies than it actually does to the animated ones. But yeah, so you obviously had the main series and you had the web series, and then on top of that, you also had loads of cancelled shows that they're gonna do.
Yeah, like Green Lantern.
Yeah, see, there should be a list. There should be a list on here, hopefully, of the cancelled ones they did, because there's more than likely gonna be a list. So I know to Green Lantern. That was obviously.
And then it was like there's gonna do like a student one, wasn't there, with Diggle?
Yeah, it was the most recent thing they're gonna do. So there's also loads of comic books I did, which is pretty cool. So you got like
I know they did a crossover with the Flash and Stargirl in a comic book, which was the comic crossover. If I remember correctly.
I mean, they also gave fucking obviously from Arrow the Dark Archer, the original villain from Arrow, the first season's villain. Like he got his own comic book.
Some
novels. There's a lot for this universe.
Yeah.
Christmas special.
I am sad that it was kind of like just fucking yeeted.
I can't see a thing on about cancer one, but I do know obviously for a fact that there was obviously the Diggle show.
Yeah.
Which was him like training like the next
show.
Basically, I think it was meant to be like what CW did with the Vampire Diaries. They did that Legacy series, which was like the.
So it was basically meant to be like Marvel's Young Avengers.
Yeah, basically, but that's something that CW tend to like do with a lot of their shows. They'll do like a main show, they'll spin off that main show, but at some point they'll also try and do one where they try and do the younger characters. Yeah. So that's what they tried to do with Diggle. They also tried to do a Black Canary one. Which was the Green Arrow and the Canaries, which was going to be set in the future timeline. They even did an entire episode in the final season dedicated to that, setting it up and everything. And they had to kind of, even technically in the Flash show, when obviously she appeared, obviously the Green Arrow, they still kept that storyline going, but it never went anywhere. So it's like a storyline that basically is not finished, which is like her brother being kidnapped, which is like, wow, that poor guy's gonna be kidnapped for eternity now.
There's no coming back.
But yeah, so obviously there's been a few like different things, and I say Superman and Lois technically originally was Arrowverse. Because obviously they introduced Superman in season 2 of Supergirl. They had him little cameos onwards, and then they obviously used him for the crossover events, and then they gave him his own show, which probably is like one of the best the best DC shows out there. Really, I mean, I think I'm halfway through season 2. But I know, obviously, it's all the seasons they've done have been like given high praise for like their cinematography, their CGI budget. Really, apart from that one scene which they released and forgot to edit, which was hilarious. There's a scene in I think it's season 1 where basically they create basically the bad guy in the again a flashback, because it's a DC show, it has to have many flashbacks. The bad guy created like his own Fortress of Solitude in like a desert, and basically to make that he had to put like some sort of like crystal in the ground. Problem is, when obviously the CGI, obviously they use basically it was CGI to construct this fortress. Problem was they forgot to actually CGI it. They used like a work print. Yeah, and that's what actually aired on TV was the work print, which was the unfinished CGI. I'll have to send you the image because it's fucking hilarious. Like how bad it is. Like the fact that no one noticed. Like it's like terribly like done. I don't know how no one went. Let's just double check this episode, make sure everything's cool with it. I will literally show.
I think they did that from the future though, right?
I've literally they did edit. They did obviously the DVD and obviously from re-releases did actually do the actual proper thing, but I still have the clip. I managed to find the clip and save it. I will send it you in a bit because, as I say, it's fucking really bad, but at the same time it's really hilarious because, as I say, I just don't know how it got through to the TV without them even noticing the mistake they made. But yeah, so obviously originally it kind of was obviously Arrowverse, because I mean even like the producer and that spoke about the idea of having Supergirl crossover and everything, but then when there was like, okay, the Arrowverse is coming to an end and stuff like that, but not just that, but before that, I think it was, like they kind of like pushed away from like
Yeah.
that idea and was like, no, it's its own like show. I mean, they recast one of the main characters because the Lois Lane's dad is a different actor in Supergirl, so they recast him going into that show, which you can look past anyway, because a lot of shows and a lot of things will recast someone, despite them clearly being played by someone else before.
Yeah.
Prime example, recently the Penguin show aired, and they recast the character they killed off in the Batman movie. And when you put an image of the two side by side, obviously they're kind of trying to say he's a younger version, but it just doesn't look right. It just looks. No, you just like look at two images and go, it's very clearly like all they've done is just put some hair on and put some like darkened his obviously beard and so his moustache and his hair to make it look like he's a bit younger rather than grayer. But at the same time, you're looking like, yeah, I can clearly tell that's not the same guy I saw in that project. But as a lot of things do that for many reasons, schedules, actors passing away, they just do it for a lot of reasons, or even just like basically they need to get rid of that actor and get someone else in because that actor is a jerk or something like that.
Like in
Flash.
No, Superman and Flash.
It was the Flash with the Elegant Man, wasn't it? Like he did some stuff on Twitter and got cancelled, so they kind of had to replace him, but they didn't replace him.
Superman and Lois.
Which one?
Their son.
Did he get cancelled?
Yeah.
Did he? I'm pretty saying he just left.
Oh,
I know 100% the Flash one was, because obviously they brought him back, but they didn't bother recasting him. They just used CGI to make his face look all fucked up.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is a funny way of doing it, but at the same time, it was just really bad CGI. But yeah, so obviously, after like one season, it basically became fully like this wasn't Arrowverse.
Yeah.
And to be fair, by the cinematography of Superman and Lois, you can tell it's not Arrowverse. It's like so different drastically. The productions are so much better on it, despite the fact they had Diggle cameo in it. That's the confusing part as well, because I think Diggle cameoed in the first season.
Diggle did his rounds.
That was at the point he was doing the rounds, yes, when he was doing the lantern ring and he was asking every season, what's this ring about? Should I take it? Yes, I remember that, because he did it in the Flash, because it's the Flash when they fully finished that storyline to a very disappointing end of him basically being like, nah, I'm not having it anymore. But obviously he appeared in the Flash with it. Superman and Lois, I think he may have done Legends at one point. It may have appeared.
I think so.
Obviously, it all started at Arrow, but you had to jump.
Yeah.
You had to jump through show to show to go, here's my ring. Should I do it or not?
Yeah. Is that your ring? Is it?
But then, as I say, after that, they kind of just like declassified it as Arrowverse, and it was just like its own thing, which is a shame because at least Arrowverse ended on a high rather than what we actually got the ending on.
Yeah, which is kind of shit.
But yeah, so let's say multiple seasons. I mean, Arrow lasted for 8 seasons, which is excellent. Yeah. Flash lasted for 9. That was the longest one. Should have not lasted for 9, if I'm going to be honest with you. In the end, Supergirl did 6. Legends did 7. Black Lightning 4, and Batwoman did 3.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think a lot of them have had issues. Obviously, I think the best parts of these shows for easily is the crossovers.
Oh, definitely, because that's where all the money fucking went. Crossovers
are usually the first seasons. Not always. I think Arrow and Flash had the two of the best first seasons. Black Lightning had a decent first season, but then I think Batwoman obviously had a lot of struggles with the first season. A lot of people didn't like it, but I think people grew on the show after the recast of, well, not recast, but they basically replaced Kate Kane. They got rid of Ruby Rose and brought in a new actress playing a new character. I mean, heck, they even technically recast her. They brought in a different actress to play the original Batwoman for like when they brought her back for like a few episodes here and there. So
I don't know. I didn't really get into season 2. Oh my god, voice, hello? Fucking hell.
I saw the first season and I never got around to watch season 2.
Yeah.
I own all the Arrowverse apart from Black Lightning, because that's on Netflix. But all the others I pretty much have every season, but I never got around to watching season 2 and 3 of Batwoman. I want to, just because, I want to finish watching them. Yeah. But I never got around to it. I still need to finish Black Lightning as well, but shows like Batwoman, shows like Legends, shows like Supergirl, I think they grew from their second season onwards. That's where they got a lot better. Whereas I say Arrow and Flash, I think from the ground off, they were great in their first season. Like, I mean, Arrow had to be great for the fact that it spun this massive universe. And then, as I say, Flash itself had to be good as well for the fact they carried on doing these universes.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I say, all these shows have their peak entries in their seasons. But I think all of them have, obviously, seasons that consist of either just episodes that just drag the season down, or just the storyline as the overall season just doesn't meet the expectations. And I think one of the reasons for that is obviously CW level writing, obviously, and also just dodgy ass CGI for certain shows, which is why I like Arrow, because it didn't really require CGI. Like, yes, there are CGI moments.
There wasn't like superpowers.
Yeah, so usually the only time there's CGI is if they bring a character in that requires superpowers. Like, someone who has magic, or someone like when they brought the Flash in, so stuff like that makes sense. And
the Flash and Constantine,
which then allowed, obviously, which meant obviously they didn't have to use like a consistent budget on it, which is why probably why Arrow looked obviously the best in terms of CGI, because it didn't require them constantly using CGI. Whereas I think obviously the Flash early on was great. I think it was really good. You can look past a lot of the bad CGI early on because it's a TV show. But I felt like it just got worse as the seasons went on. And not just the CGI, but I think its writing struggled. Like, some of its storylines were just ass. Like, it just, I don't know. Ever since obviously COVID, like, the show just didn't pick up. Like, first 2 seasons were great. A lot of people hate season 3, but I didn't mind season 3. But season 4 was good. I'm literally just trying to remember fucking shows here. But season 5 was pretty good, if I remember correctly. But like the last 4 seasons were just up and down, up and down, up and down, because it just never got to that point. Obviously, that's when COVID started happening. And
I mean, during COVID, we can understand. Like, it's fair enough. Like, some stuff in the world, you can't like predict. But the
thing is, it just wasn't that though. Obviously. Yes, obviously a lot of ideas had to get scrapped because they couldn't get people to do them. So you can say, okay, I'll let you off with that because of, say, COVID.
Yeah.
Like, I know, for example, they were on about crossovers, and I couldn't do them because of, obviously, what was going on. Which, okay, you can say, fair enough, we understand you on that. But then you can't really say how, obviously, you can't really defend the downgrading CGI, because it did generally just get fucking terrible towards the back end of the season. The shows, and I said the writing itself just never seemed to peak. I mean, what sums it up is the Star Wars lightsaber battle they had in season, was it 7? Was it 8? It's the one where obviously you had obviously Reverse Flash, you had Barry, and you had Godspeed, wasn't it? And they all just summoned lightning lightsabers. And it's just like,
what the fuck is this shit?
Like, it's one of those things that it's just hilarious to watch, but at the same time, when you've been a long time fan, you're like, why am I just being like flipping the bird at me right now? They're literally just like that in their audience. So it's like, what the fuck? Like, there's just so much that it just, especially Flash specifically, just downgraded in its back end of its run, and that's why I'm saying that's one of the shows that shouldn't have ended the universe. That shouldn't have been the last show, because it just. It left a sour taste. It just, I don't know. It just ran its course, and ironically, But as you say, that's to do with production. They kind of just fumbled the back end of the show. Whereas I think Arrow, pretty much like it's obviously run towards the end, was handled really well. Obviously, they did all their shows. I think the only show that a lot of people didn't like, I think, was season 4 when they did the magical side of it.
Yeah.
When obviously they killed Canary off, they brought Damien Dark, and I know a lot of people didn't like a lot of that and didn't like the ending of that. I thought it was okay. I'm a big Arrow fan, so I'm going to be biased on that one.
I can tell.
But I think after that, they definitely improved a lot. Obviously, they saw those showrunners saw the issues and went, okay, we'll fix on them. And even then, towards its end, when they obviously were ramping up to this is the final season.
Yeah.
Obviously, they had Oliver doing a farewell tour, going and saying goodbye to everyone that's been in the show, which is a really nice way of ending a show, really, I thought.
Yeah.
Then obviously they killed him off in the crossover. And then they had a couple of episodes then that were without him, and they were both there to wrap up the show and also spin off the show, which it only did one half of that. It did the wrapping up, it didn't do the spinning off, because
Yeah.
CW did their classic CW thing of going, here's a backdoor pilot. Yeah, we got a show coming your way. A few months later, what show? I don't see a show. Fucking Supernatural's the worst for it. They've had to have had like 4 backdoor pilots throughout their fucking long ass run. And every single time it got canned. The only time they actually managed to get a Supernatural show off the ground was the prequel show, which itself got cancelled after 1 season. That you know, they literally did try to do a female spin-off, they tried to do a Western spin-off. They tried so much to do spin-offs. Like the cast themselves have tried so much to get a spin-off going, but every time they push it, it gets canned by the fucking studio. And they finally got one going, which was the prequel about the mom and dad. And you're like, okay, it did do its best, so they cancelled after one go. And I was just like, so it finally got its chance, and then they just went.
Yeah, maybe they should, like, I don't know, like, stop.
Well, I mean, they pretty much have stopped with Supernatural now. That one's like completely dead, just like the Arrowverse, until they somehow find a way to bring it back.
I kind of wish they do, because like I've got that like gap now of my stuff to do weekly, of not having a live action show to watch. Although there is the new Agatha All Along, which I haven't started watching yet.
I watched 2 episodes. My camera's cut off my one finger then. I watched 2 episodes. It's okay. I wouldn't say it's as good as WandaVision, but it's pretty decent.
I mean, it is a spin-off.
Yeah, spin-offs are never as good as what they're based.
It had its backdoor pilot, you know,
which was the entirety of WandaVision.
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously, let's say Flash run its course towards then. Supergirl, I never actually finished it. I never watched the last season fully.
What, Supergirl?
Yeah, I never saw season 6.
It was okay. Like, it wasn't the best.
So I don't actually know how it ends, because I say I never got around to actually watching it.
I honestly can't remember how it ends either, because it's been a fucking long time.
I'm guessing more than likely they wrote it as her just going away, and it's just, that's it. It's just she's having a life now. Maybe I don't know.
Possibly. I honestly don't remember.
I say that show. I say for me when it was, because I think season 1 was under the original network. I think that was when it was under NBC, and I think season 2 onwards is when CW took it. And I think it actually did improve as soon as CW took it, which is weird. That CW usually ruins stuff, and they didn't with this. They actually improved it, and they did some decent seasons with a lot of decent storytelling. And I don't remember the ending, so I can't really discuss that one too much. But I think for me, the one show that after its first season that I felt was really good all the way through was Legends. I fucking love that show.
It was just so different and like fucking wacky.
You see, it had the same vibes as, say, something like The Flash and Arrow with the whole team dynamic, which is something both of those shows pushed a lot as the seasons went on. They pushed the idea of a team. Whereas Legends, it was like from the get-go, here's a team. And they did an interesting thing where it's constantly replacing certain members. The only like one that actually stayed on till the end was obviously Caitlin.
A White
Sarah.
Canary.
I had to think that Sarah, that's the one that stayed on. So obviously she's the only one that was a consistent figure. All the rest, and Gideon technically. All the rest were kind of maybe there for a bit or there for 1 season or so long, and they were out. So obviously, I mean, like, Captain Cold and Heatwave. Captain Cold went out in season 1, but came back for a little bit as a villain. Heatwave lasted till season 6, I think he lasted till in the end.
Yeah. You had the Atom.
Atom, I think, also lasted to around 5 and 6.
Vixen.
She came in season 2. But it didn't, I'm pretty certain they still used Amara, but it was like a different character.
I think it was because. Because it was
didn't they? And they changed some stuff about her.
Yeah,
so that's what this show liked to do a lot, wasn't it? They liked to kill characters, bring them back in different roles.
Yeah, it's like it was. Because there was the love interest of Captain Steel.
Yeah, Steel, because he was in love with obviously the
Zuri.
yeah. Well, obviously, because didn't Atom fall for
Damien Dark's daughter.
in the end, but which is actually his wife in real life. But didn't he also fall for someone in the early season? Didn't he fall for? Wasn't the Hawk girl he fell for in the end? Or was it? I'm thinking of someone else.
I think it might be someone else. Because
someone definitely fell for someone because they were trapped in like the past of them for fucking ages. And I swear it was Atom and fucking Hawk girl, or is he at least Atom and someone else?
I completely forgot Hawk Girl and Hawkman was even in the fucking show.
That was like a first season thing, and then they just again that was another thing they got rid of to bring new characters in. Because I mean, they were literally the whole reason for the spin-off in the first place. Because they were the backdoor pilot, and then they just used them and Rip for once. Rip and Captain Cold for one season, wasn't it?
Yeah, I wish they kept Rip, to be honest.
And say it was a good character. And obviously, they did bring him back here and there, but then I say it was a show that they kept bringing in new characters, replacing them. Like I said, they brought in obviously Sarah's love interest, obviously the head of the head of that agency. So
then you've also got like
they brought Steel in the second season, which was they also had Arrow in that episode because that's how they brought him in, because he went to him for help. They also brought in that woman who could turn into like a Hawk-like monster. If you remember, she could shapeshift into like a monster, like a bookworm type character. She was like a nerd. She worked at the agency, if I remember correctly. An Asian character. I just don't remember her name off the top of my head. Her name's, but she was there at one point.
Let me actually do the clever thing and actually like Google.
I can't remember her name. I can't remember which season she's coming to. If I'm gonna be honest, it's got to have been like season 4 or 5. It was towards at one point because I know they brought Gary into it, and he was kind of there for the back end of the show. Obviously, Constantine.
He turned out to be a fucking alien.
Constantine came into it, and then they replaced him with another actor. Obviously, they kept the actor, replaced Constantine with a different character for the last season.
Yeah.
But it's one of those shows where they kept bringing in new characters, and like it kept giving a fresh new feel so it wasn't feeling stale. It always had you on the edge of the seat. There was always these crazy shenanigans. Like, for example, they went back in time to start Gorilla Grodd from killing Barack Obama. Like, it's crazy ass stuff like that.
And then fucking Bebo. Sorry, Bebo.
They made a giant Bebo to fight a giant demon.
Firestorm and that. Yeah,
Firestorm was part of the first couple of seasons, I think it was. And again, they wrote him in because of Stein getting killed in the crossover. Spoilers. But yeah, it was one of those shows where they kept changing characters, bringing new ones in, and it did work because, as I say, it felt like that character maybe had run their course. They didn't really need to stick around, so you were able to bring that new character and to give them a story. And my only problem,
are you thinking of Astra?
Might have been, yeah. Or might have been. Because she's the one that became... Is that the one that became Zari in the end?
No.
Which one am I thinking of? Because there's one that was basically like a hacker, and she was in love with Nate, and then she became like a streamer type, like a influencer. She had a brother. She had a brother who was just high the entire time. That's his whole character trait. It was just high.
Weed, you know.
That was his whole character. Was just he liked to get high. Yeah. But yeah, so you had them. So it's just that's what I liked about it. They brought these characters in, and I said on top of that, if it was an act that everyone liked and they had run their course for the character, they still kept him around. Like I say, with Matt Ryan as Constantine, everyone loved Matt Ryan as Constantine. Everyone loves Matt Ryan. He's so good in a lot of stuff. I mean, at the moment, I'm bashing through Assassin's Creed 4, which he's the main character in, which I'm just that biased and in love with just because he's in it. I fucking love him as an actor. He's so good.
Fucking simp.
So obviously everyone loved him, and it's just like, okay, we've run our course for the character. What do? We still want to use this actor. Let's bring him in as a new character for this final season. But I think the only problem I have with Legends, which left a sour note, is the fact that it was the one show that ended on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
They set up a season 8. They brought in Booster Gold, which is like a Blue Beetle related character. They brought this guy in. They got the guy from Scrubs to play him. And the team got arrested, and it ended. And you're just like, okay, season 8 cancelled. And I think that's the only sour note really for Legends for me. Obviously,
Yeah.
First season was not its strongest, but it was improving. And the fact that its last season ended on such a sour note. But obviously, its positives were the new characters it kept bringing in and introducing. It had a great cast. And it had stupid storylines that just worked because the show was just crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point when everyone else did a crossover and Legends didn't do one, they did their own little mini episode. It was just over the top. I think at one point there were puppets. Like they were just like,
oh yeah, I can remember that one. Yeah,
because they were angry with the fact that the rest of them did crossovers about them. Because I mean, I'm pretty certain in the one episode they're like, wait, did they do a crossover without us?
Because they were like very, like not 4-4 breaking.
So I think for some of the crossovers they weren't required. I feel like Flash, Arrow, and Supergirl they worked as like the main points of the crossovers. That trio,
Definitely.
and then even throw Batwoman in there. That four work as a sort of like a crossover point. Whereas Legends, they seem to me more as ones where they can come in for the big ones. The ones where they require like so many characters, like they did obviously with the Crisis event, for example. Obviously, Black Lightning. I watched the first 2 seasons. I never finished it, but it was a very strong point.
Yeah,
I know that one itself dealt a lot with like race, and basically a lot of like tough topics. Which out of all of them was quite interesting for the fact that all the others were goofy.
race and drugs, wasn't it?
Yeah, because if you think like Arrow was dark, but obviously it still had a lot of light moments. Obviously, Flash dark early on, but grew into more of a comedy as it went on. And Legend itself was a goofy ass show. I know it does that for some reason. I don't know why. It was a goofy ass show. Whereas Black Lightning felt like it felt like old school Arrow. It felt like original Arrow, where it was gritty.
It was more the edgy kind.
It was the edgy DC. What started the show off. And so I never finished it, so I can't really say too much about that.
Yeah.
But it was a breath of fresh air for the universe because it was gritty and whatnot. And so then they did Batwoman, which obviously everyone shit on the first season. It was like one of the most hated like entries at the time.
It wasn't the best, but I kind of liked it.
I agree. It was one of those ones where out of all of them, if you look at all the opening seasons, you probably would go, yeah, this is probably the weakest of the opening seasons, but it still had its charm, is the word I'm going to use there. Like, it wasn't out of this world amazing, but it was intriguing to watch. I mean, we've seen Batman plenty of times. We've seen a lot of his obviously sidekicks, obviously Robin, Nightwing, and all that. We've seen them appear as side characters in other things. Heck, we got Titans with those characters in, and it's just like it's interesting that we got a Batman project that obviously that fully focused singularly on a Bat character that wasn't Batman. Because really, if you think of Titans, yes, it has Nightwing, yes, it has Robin, yes, it has Red Hood, but it's about other characters as well.
Yeah,
it's not just them; it's about the rest of the Titans: Raven, Beast Boy, Superboy, Starfire, exactly. It's about all these other characters.
No, not Cyborg.
No, because he's Doom Patrol.
Cyborg's Doom Patrol.
They weirdly put him in Doom Patrol, despite the fact that he's more of a Titan than Doom Patrol. That was a weird choice, but it happened.
Yeah.
So it was quite kind of interesting to get this first time show.
Oh, yeah, there was also Hawk and Dove, wasn't there?
Yes. But it was interesting to get this first time show that wasn't Batman. And heck, it wasn't even like, say, Nightwing or... Because they could have probably done a Nightwing show or something like that in this universe.
Definitely. What is it? Gotham Knights, like the video game.
But it's interesting, like they did the TV show, because CW technically did the Gotham Knights show. That got cancelled after 1 season because it wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And it basically was nothing like the game, so it wasn't actually like Nightwing, it wasn't Robin, it wasn't...
Yeah.
It basically wasn't the characters that like that. It was like some other characters, and it just like wasn't very good. The only interesting thing about it was it had one of the characters from Supernatural playing Two-Face. That was the only thing that was interesting about it. And heck, it wasn't even Two-Face, I don't think, till at the very end. And that was them setting up season 2 before it got canned. But that was one of CW's many other attempts of trying to do other DC shows. But I would say it was nice to say instead of getting one of these characters, get Batwoman, because if you think about it, Arrow has Flash. Yes, Flash can have obviously it does have this bond with Supergirl. But Supergirl doesn't have this girly bond like Arrow and Flash have this obviously male bond. So it's nice that we got obviously that between them.
Yeah.
I wish we got a few more encounters with them, because there was a lot of like teases in the first crossover with Batwoman of this bond with Supergirl, but we never really got too much with that.
I kind of wish that Stargirl kind of got mixed into the bunch a bit more, because I really like Stargirl. Stargirl was...
I never finished season 1, if I'm going to be honest with you. It's not as that I didn't like it, I just never got around to actually watching it properly. I watched the first episode and that was it.
Fucking hell.
I think I watched the first 2 maybe, actually. I think it's like many of them. Like Titans I still haven't finished, Doom Patrol I haven't finished. There's many shows that I've got and I just never get around to fucking watching.
I've never been so disappointed in you in my life.
I will at some point. It's one of those. It's many of those things where they're finished. So at any point I can sit down and go, you know, fuck it, I'm in that mood today. I mean, I've tried to watch Supernatural from the start about fucking 50 times. I get so many seasons in and forget what's going on.
I mean, to be honest, it's like me and fucking Lord of the Rings, or like what was it called? Game of Thrones. That's it.
Game of Thrones is the one you're after, yeah.
I literally got through one episode and I was like, oh, nah, not for me.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. But I say for getting a Batwoman show was pretty interesting. Obviously, it just got fumbled early on because of obviously responses. They changed a lot about it going forward. They did improve on it, but obviously he got the point they were improving was the point of CW were basically killing off the Arrowverse, because it's not just that CW were killing off the Arrowverse. CW were killing off a lot of their shows. They only want like a limited amount of TV shows going out, so it was not just the Arrowverse that got affected. I mean, they were doing a show called Walker, which starred obviously one of the Supernatural actors. That lasted for 4 seasons, but they cancelled that as well. Again, that also had a spin-off, which actually starred the actress who was Oliver's daughter in the future timeline. She was in the spin-off, which was a prequel, which itself got cancelled after 1 season. There's a lot of other shows that CW were chopping. Like they've only got Superman and Lois. The only reason they kept it was because it had such a positive response, and they've kept it mainly so that obviously they can actually wrap it up, which is what they're doing with the current season, which comes out. I think it comes out in a couple of months. Next month, I think it is, at some point. Obviously, that is so they could actually wrap it up, and that was because obviously there was a lot of response from obviously fans wanting to see actually finished, that obviously the heads of DC now were like, okay, we'll actually let this one wrap up and finish rather than just it off. But yeah, so it was a good thing. Obviously, it's a shame that obviously by the time back when in people's eyes was improving, that it was the point that the show had to go. Which is the one thing with this universe. It had a really good start. It had mix of responses in the middle, and then towards the back end, it was hit or miss with a lot of the shows. You had shows like Batwoman, which were improving. As I don't know too much about the back end of Black Lightning. Legends was consistently the same. I felt all the way through. Supergirl again was the same. I think Flash was probably the only one that saw the massive decline more than anything. Like it had that steady start, dipped a bit for a lot of people, come back, but then went straight back down.
I mean, I kind of fell off with Arrow. Like, I don't know when it was, but it was some time. I just, nah.
See, I know for a lot of people, I say Arrow up until season 4, then it dipped a bit, but then it went back up going forward. Yeah. But obviously, a lot of the shows tend to mainly improve as they went on, which you like to see. You like to see a show improve as it goes on. Whereas out of all on Flash, obviously, was the downside. And I'm going to keep shitting on it because that fucking ending was awful. Yeah. I mean, me and you, I think, if I remember correctly, you did an episode of that Let's Chat show I did for a very brief time where you spoke about your love for The Flash. I'll link it in the comments, in the description below, because I remember that was a decent discussion. And you spoke about your love. And this was obviously before we got this back end of the show. So this is at the point where we had like these great seasons of The Flash. And we were both like, yeah, we fucking love this. This is the topic we can talk about for ages. But we both have said many times that we hate how it ended.
Yeah, it's fucking terrible.
Like it was just like I feel like it was because it was a mixture of bad storytelling, bad writing, and the bad effects just fumbled what could have been a great end. Like Flash's ending should have been the same level as Arrow's ending. Like it should have been this emotional.
It was a pretty like good thing, like good show, and they just fucking went, yeah, fuck yeah.
Problem with the last season as well, they started interestingly by going with like the Batwoman crossover event, which obviously wasn't Batwoman, it was like the Red Death. So they did that for the first few episodes, and you're like, okay, this is like an interesting way to start the show. And then they got rid of that storyline after a couple of episodes. It was like a 4-episode arc, and they got rid of it and went into their own little random stories while also trying to tell a story to end the show. And I say it's just one of those ones where it just fell so hard on its ending that it shouldn't have. Again, quote, going back to Arrow, it should have been as emotional as that ending was. It should have been a final season of him saying goodbye to a lot of things.
Yeah.
And then having this. Not that he doesn't have to die. He doesn't have to do an Arrow and die. Obviously, Arrow had to die for the crossover event. It had to happen for the stakes to be so high for that. Plus, he had to become, obviously, this new being. He had to become, obviously, the Spectre.
Yeah.
Which is something he appeared in the Flash when he came back to life, didn't he, in the one episode? Which probably was the best episode of the fucking that entire season. Was the one when they brought him back to life and he teamed up with him. That's probably generally like the best episode of that season. Everything else in that season was such hit and miss. But it's just one of those ones where the Arrowverse as a whole on paper is such a good idea. And it worked for a long time. But then it just suffered from the classic CW situation of... Not just CW, really. I feel like some networks, some shows do get that to a point when they're kind of run out of ideas, so they have to recycle stuff, and they're having to just try anything to try and get a story that eventually it doesn't hit the same as it used to. As I said, the high points of these shows easily are the crossovers.
Oh, definitely.
But it's just one of those things where you can't just always rely on that. You also have to rely on a decent story to get you to that point of a crossover. Those crossovers, which they were basically usually mid to early in the season, and they were designed to be this just like a big celebration for fans. Like here's how our shows. Go watch every single season so you can know what's going on, because they obviously, I think in the first one. It was pretty easy because it was just one episode in Arrow, one episode in Flash. It was pretty easy. But then when you started getting to the point when they brought in these other shows, you had it was episode of Flash, episode of Arrow, episode of Supergirl, episode of Legends, episode of Batwoman. I think Black Lightning was the only one that didn't have this problem, obviously, because they only brought him in for the Crisis event, and they only brought him in for that one episode of the Flash, which is again probably one of the best episodes of that season. So they brought him in twice. They kept him as his own character, which was a nice little thing. It didn't really need to be pushed. I feel like if they pushed him too much into that universe, they could have fumbled the show entirely. As I don't know if they did or not, because I never got that far in the show. But off my knowledge of being early on, they didn't fumble it. So maybe if they did push him too much into it, they would have fumbled it too much. Another thing they also fumbled was the idea of Justice League in that universe. When they were like, oh, here's our new super secret base. Here's like the chairs with all the logos on. Oh my god, this looks so good. Did we do anything with it?
No.
Slightly, not fully. Like we made references probably, and that's about how far we got with it.
Yeah.
Heck, I'm pretty certain they even did like a teaser, like some monkey in that situation, and they didn't do anything with that either, if I remember correctly.
The fucking banana and shit like that.
And it's like, oh, that's a little reference, and then they did nothing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain they just used that hall for like little moments where they have one-to-ones with characters.
Yeah.
And it's just like...
When you were there, you knew shit was going down.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where, obviously, it's a great idea. I love the idea of these multiple seasons that have such connective... obviously, connectivity. I like that. And especially with superhero genres, it's one of those ones where it's easy to do. Obviously, it doesn't have to be a series, movies. Yeah. It's such an easy thing to allow multiple things to exist within the same universe. And really, the Arrowverse is the TV equivalent of an MCU. Yeah. That's what it is. At this point when the Arrowverse was going, DC movies were not at the point of where Marvel were at the time.
Yeah, like I think I used to say this before. you got Marvel with the movies, and you got DC with the TV shows. Because at the time, Marvel's TV shows, don't tell Hayden, but they weren't very good.
2012, there wasn't. If I'm honest, in 20 when this universe started, there wasn't many.
Because there was Jessica Jones.
They hadn't started yet. The Netflix stuff had not started by the point this universe kicked off.
Well, by the time I actually started watching them, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Punisher, Daredevil. I mean, people love Daredevil and that, but I absolutely. For me, it wasn't to the point of DC's TV shows.
Oh, no, for me, way better than DC TV shows. Absolutely.
See, that's what I mean. Like, it's a personal preference, but
that's why I'm choosing myself over the new one.
But yeah, that's just my personal preference.
Yeah,
I felt that DC had better TV shows and Marvel had better movies, because I don't like any of the DC movies. I'm not gonna lie.
See, at the point when obviously, if you're talking about the span of 2012 to 2023 for this universe, obviously you had Dark Knight Rises, which was probably one of DC's big hits because it was the ending of a trilogy. Actually, had that come out at this point? I think it'd already come out at this point. Yeah, so it'd already come out. So this followed on from that. So the big Batman trilogy had come to an end. They were moved to TV. Movie wise, the second season of Arrow came out the same year as Man of Steel, which was the kickstart of the DC universe for the movies, which I absolutely love. Man of Steel. It's such a good film. Obviously, then they themselves then tried to make their own MCU, but obviously the DC extended universe, all while the Arrowverse going on, which kind of affected a lot of stuff because they were being weird of not allowing two things to exist at the same time, which is why it took ages to get Superman in Supergirl, because they were using him for the movies, but when they kind of got rid of him from the movies, they were like, you can have Superman back now. It's just like that's why Batman wasn't involved. There's a lot of things. The only one, the exception really was the Flash, because there's kind of had to be an exception there. But yeah, so obviously, Man of Steel, that was followed by Batman vs Superman. Basically, you had all these ones that were critically hit and miss, audience-wise hit and miss, box office-wise, Man of Steel did okay, BVS did pretty good, Suicide Squad did okay, Wonder Woman did the best at this point. Justice League did rubbish. Aquaman did great. That was probably one of its biggest hits, really, was the first Aquaman. Then obviously we had Shazam, which did okay. For the fact it wasn't a big character, it did okay. Then you had the COVID stuff, so you had the Birds of Prey movie, which didn't do very good, because again, COVID / Sonic came out at the same time, which was a much better movie, personally. What else do you have then? Wonder Woman, the sequel to that, which was trash. Fucking Suicide Squad, which we spoke about before, the second one, which we really enjoyed. It's the point when actually DC picked up for a little bit, but then they just kept dropping off. They were putting out a lot of movies over for the point of 2023. I think the last film really that would have come out. So when did Flash finish? Flash finished May 2023. So the last thing that would have come out then, by that point, off the top of my head, Shazam 2. I'm thinking off the top of my head. So that was the last. So basically, Arrowverse, obviously the movies that happened while the Arrowverse was going on, started with Man of Steel and it ended on Shazam 2. And you had like an entire universe. And the only things that really came after that was the wrapping up of the DC movies, like how the Arrowverse did. But just like the Arrowverse, they seem to fumble the ending. So that's the one thing with DC. They seem to have pretty good starts, but they just seem to fumble a lot. Yeah,
it kind of fucking goes down as the show goes on.
See, I know Marvel fumble a few things here and there, but as an overall, they've got more positives and negatives, I find. Whereas DC, I tend to find they lean a bit more into the negatives. Don't get me wrong, I love the Arrowverse. It's one of the things that heavily got me fully into comic books. Obviously, yes, I watched the Marvel stuff and I've seen a lot of other stuff before that, but Arrowverse, one of those things that it's a weekly thing, so week by week you're just getting invested a lot more. It's getting you invested in characters that before you wouldn't really care about too much. Like, I absolutely love Green Arrow now. Like, he's one of my favourite DC characters. I've got more respect for the Flash. I think it's a cool character.
Yeah.
Constantine is one of those ones that I fucking absolutely love because of like this universe. Supergirl, I found a lot more love for. Obviously, a lot of these little characters you see in Legends that you probably wouldn't even have heard of. I think they're pretty cool. Black Lightning, a character that I probably wouldn't normally
Yeah.
be interested in. Again, it's another character I've never really heard of before until these shows. So that's one thing I will, just like Marvel, really. The DC, especially the Arrowverse, they introduce you to characters that you wouldn't yes,
Yeah.
you've got your big characters that you know for a fact from other things, Flash, Superman, just like how you got Iron Man, Captain America, these characters that are more mainstream. But then you got these more characters that aren't as mainstream, that they bring you into love. Like Marvel did it with Ant-Man, the Guardians, like so there's stuff like that. Because realistically, Legends was DC's equivalent of trying to do the Guardians of the Galaxy type thing. This crazy kooky team up, but without the full space travel, more just the time travel.
Time travel.
So I say it's just one of those things that I absolutely love the Arrowverse, but I do see its flaws. It's one of those ones where if it didn't have these flaws, it probably would be like one of the best like TV universes for these ones. It's like the thing is that there's certain Netflix ones, even they fumbled a lot. Talking about Iron Fist, and obviously Defenders in a lot of people's eyes, they fumbled a lot with them. So like not every TV universe is, especially comic book wise, is obviously outstanding. There's always at least one or two things that are issues that obviously need to be improved for the whole overall to be perfect. But I feel like the Arrowverse walked. So obviously the current Marvel lineup that they keep doing for TV could actually happen. Because I mean, if you think about it, Arrowverse showed that TV shows, weekly superhero shows, do work. Like yes, we've seen it before with Smallville and stuff, but we don't really see it a lot often. But Arrowverse showed it does work. People do tune in for these, and obviously it took Marvel a long time to do it. Obviously, it was post Endgame when Disney Plus came around that they were like, okay, we'll actually probably do something now because yes, we've got some ABC shows going on, we've got some Netflix shows going on, but they haven't always been these massive hits. But let's try our own thing. Let's connect it all properly now, and obviously that's their equivalent of an Arrowverse, really. Is the expansion onto the small screen for characters that don't normally get the big screen treatment. Like, as you say, the WandaVision show. Wanda and Vision, yes, they are in the movies, but it's not like they're probably going to get a movie.
No.
At the time, obviously Falcon Winter Soldier, again, not really going to see them get a movie, but Falcon's now becoming Captain America, so it kind of doesn't fully count. It counts to an extent. But I'm looking at characters like Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk. The list goes on in these projects that probably aren't going to get movie treatments.
I mean, they get added into them, but like that's about it.
Exactly. It may be a time when you see like the odd one or two that you think, well, that could have easily been a movie. Like in this case, The Flash could have easily had a movie out of this universe. Arrow could have easily had one. And if you look at Marvel, I know they fumbled the show, but really the Secret Invasion storyline could have easily been like an entire 2-hour plus movie.
I still haven't really watched Secret Invasion.
It was one of those ones where it's just like how Batwoman's a weak link for the Arrowverse. It's one of those ones where it's a weak link for the universe.
Yeah,
but it's one of those ones where if you think about it, storyline wise, could have easily been a movie. But at the same time, you can see it works as a TV show because it's like, you know, it's a big event, but at the same time, it's teasing a bigger event.
So I remember, I don't know who it was, but someone said like if you watch Secret Invasion, it might ruin what you think of the older movies.
Yeah, because it tries to add stuff of like this person's been a Skrull for ages or something like that. But then at the same time, that contradicts like actual other stuff which prove they're not a Skrull. It's like there's a problem with obviously continuity with the Marvel ones. I don't remember fully continuity issues with the Arrow ones. I don't fully remember like issues where you look at them and go, hold on. That's different to where it was in there. But obviously that's the one thing with the Marvel ones. There's a few things where continuity, they're trying so much because they've got the movies as well to try. It's a much bigger universe than the Arrowverse. And there's that much you got to try and remember to do. Whereas the Arrowverse, it was much smaller scale. but it still had a big heart.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think as an overall, it worked and it didn't work, and it's something that I can go back to and rewatch.
Yeah.
Apart from the back end of the Flash.
I mean, I'm tempted to actually go rewatch some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Because like I can't remember shit at the moment.
I'm definitely tempted to try and finish Black Lightning, Batwoman, and Supergirl. I'm interested in rewatching Legends from the get go, and Arrow. And let's say with Flash, I'll get to a point, then I'll just what I'll do with that. I'll get to the point where I'm like, yeah, this is where it peaked, and then I'll do an edit where it cuts to the last shot of the Flash of him just running, and be like, there you go, it ended there. That was his ending. Nice job, Flash. Or I'll
watch Stargirl.
Yeah, that too. But what I might do is I'll pick the episodes I actually did enjoy, and it's like really poor ass ending, and put them randomly. Be like, oh, this is just his last act. Like, and then just edit the last shot of the show where he's like running away, like running and shit like that, and be like, there we go. That's how the show ends. That's my ending. It's not your shitty ass ending. But yeah, I'm definitely interested in going. It's one of those It's one of those universes that I'm definitely interested in going back and seeing through. Yeah. Because it was such a fun thing. It's one of those fun memories of the last, as I say, fucking 2012, last 12 years. One of those fun memories of being at something that I watched weekly over 12 years. So, 11 technically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like that. I feel like we had a nice little chat there about the Arrowverse.
I know it kind of went from Arrowverse to
we threw in a few other things.
Yeah, Marvel versus DC and all that jazz, but yeah,
but we're still good at our pros and praise and dislikes of the actual shows and just the structure of it. I feel like that's all this is. It's the life and death.
Yeah,
it started with Arrow and then sort of sabuku'd itself with the Flash, which is a shame because at one point the Flash was becoming the better TV show.
Yeah,
but yet somehow that's the one that ruined its landing at the end. But yeah, so yeah, obviously you can check out the podcast on Apple Podcast, Audible, fucking Spotify. I was supposed to say Spotify first. My brain's just like shutting down. It's been speaking for so long. The list goes on. Obviously, you can also check on YouTube. As I say, I'll link on YouTube stuff like the Flash Talk. I mean, Alex did a couple of years ago.
Which I can't remember. And
we have actually covered. Obviously, me and Alex covered the entire animated DC universe they did recently, which is it was the Arrowverse, but movie-wise and animated. It was again just like this universe. It was the better part of DC at the time, with the movies being very hit or miss.
Yeah.
Obviously, the movies have been covered. They're there also. There, I know you've done like one or two of them, and I still technically need to finish that universe. I've still got a couple of entries that need to be reviewed, i.e., Shazam 2, Blue Beetle, and
Aquaman. They made the Blue Beetle movie, didn't they?
And Aquaman 2. I think those are the three that I need to do to finish that universe off, so I will do them at some point. I'll have to try and figure out when to do them. But yeah, so I got all them. So there's a lot of DC stuff if you're interested in DC to check out. If not, there's a lot of Marvel stuff. And there's just a lot of stuff in general. Obviously, there's a lot of video games me and Alex do together. He streams on Twitch pretty much enough daily.
Yeah, and YouTube now. I've managed to dual stream.
On both. So obviously just search for Bad Quality Bear on both. And you'll find him. Obviously, he's linked again. If you're on YouTube, the link's always in the description below for his channel, so you can find him that way. And obviously, thanks for joining me on this one, Alex. It was a nice little conversation.
You're welcome. I kind of zoned out during most of it, and my brain was on autopilot. But you're welcome.
Do you know that's my superpower? I can make people just zone out and just listen to me for hours on end. That's literally my power.
Yeah.
It's working again.
In your dreams.
It's working again. He's zoned out that much. He's dreaming of me. I can see that face. He's smiling because it's happening right now. Anyway, that is it. Obviously, I hope you enjoyed this episode and do hope to see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
If you like what you've seen, don't be afraid to throw us a little like and subscribe. That's always very appreciated over here. And, I'll see you on the next video.